Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. I'm back. You can see my studio behind me. We were just on the road in New York City, which was great. The whole East Coast, which was fantastic. So one of the ways to support the show is to go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood, and at one of the levels you can do a video interview like this, and we can talk about whatever it is that you'd like to talk about. And I'm here with the wonderful natural progressive. Chris, how are you?
Fantastic for the week I've had.
Sure, I know.
How are you?
I'm all right.
I've seen your week, so I know you're flying high.
Yeah,
but tired.
I'm a little tired, but because the road week was great. But yeah, I'm excited to be home and to get back into my studio and crank it out. So you wanted to your focus is obviously the environment, and there's a ticking clock as to how much time is left, which is a pretty severe thing. I mean, obviously it depends on which report you read, how much time we have, but the reality is that there's stuff. We obviously want big things. We want a Green New Deal and all of these things, but there's little things that we all can do in our daily lives that might not seem like big gestures, but if we all do them, they can have a profound impact. And there's a lot of countries and communities doing some amazing things. So what are some of the things that you wanted to talk about today that anyone can do, whether you live in a home or an apartment, that could help the environment?
Well, the two things I want to talk about today, pretty much getting your food local and growing your own food, or at least being a part of a community that grows their own food. So whether you're in an apartment or in your own house or a neighborhood, there's things that you can do no matter what situation you're in. If you're too busy, like I know you travel a lot, there's no way you can keep up a garden, right? So there are things you can do to partake in that as well. I mean, there are a lot of resources that are needed for community gardens. Helping them buy supplies for those gardens. It would be just as useful to some community gardens as going in there and doing the work. They need, boards to build garden beds and fertilizer, organic fertilizers or composting materials, the fancy compost bins and all that y'all can, and you can take your compost there and use that as well. There's opportunities in elderly people's backyards that can't do anything with their backyards and they're just going to weeds. You can go help people grow food in empty lot spaces that aren't being used. So, there's so many things that you can do outside of being a part of a community garden, outside of growing food in your own backyard. There are some things you can grow inside apartments. You can grow onions and some greens and all that inside your apartment, but where you're gone all the time, that would be really hard.
Right,
I understand
that. That's a good point, and I think too, for everybody out there, one of the things we talk about on this show is what things you can do in your community that fit you in your life. So if you travel like me, there's still things you can do. But even if whatever situation you're in, that's a great point. Like you could find, if you have an elderly neighbor who there's not doing much with their lawn, maybe you can go to them and say, hey, how about if I set up a garden for both of us? And they would probably love it. And
they probably would. Throw them some food. And if you couldn't do it, you could maybe even organize and say, hey, I'll pitch in a couple bucks for this and that. If you guys want to garden it, and you can set it up for them, and have some friends go and garden. There's so much you can do, and there's so much empty space that could be used for that. And you're not destroying more ecosystems in the process. Sorry about my dogs. They're barking out there. The two I've left. Helping out with the expenses in exchange for some of the food would be great for someone like you probably. Here, I'll throw you a couple bucks for some boards or, whatever you need. Helping them, take a weekend and help them build the drip system or something. There's things you can do, and I think everybody needs to pitch in as much as possible to get the food local. That's not only is it helping you have a more secure food supply and one that you know where it's coming from, you know what's in it, you know it's organic because you know the people growing it, but also you're not paying for that food to be transported to where you are.
Yeah,
So,
that's such a great point too, and I think we get so much food that is shipped from all over the place. I mean, I shop at this local market, and I also shop at a co-op, which gets a lot of its food locally. Because I'll give you you and all the viewers an amazing, like really profound statistic, like just with the island of Oahu, right? So it currently has a population of I think of about 1.3 million people in it, and now like 100 or 50 some years ago, there was 1 million people living on that island, and the island was completely sustainable. It was completely self-sustainable. They grew all their own food. Now they ship in all of this food, and there was a recent study that if they closed all the ports in Oahu, they would run out of food in 4 days.
wow. See, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane. But the thing is oh my God. You know what happened with Cuba with the embargo?
Mm-hmm.
Where they couldn't ship in everything? Suddenly they had to become self-sufficient. And they're really a good example of how we should be living, living within our own resources, within our own area, because you don't want to be in that position where you have to ship in food or you're dead. I mean, that's not a good position to be in. Mm-hmm. So they need to figure something out. And growing your own food, I'm sure there's really good soil there. A lot of people who grow their own in that area, I would think.
Yeah, that's a great example. When Cuba was in that position, they went to they did it in Havana, in a major city. People made little community gardens. They did it on rooftops of buildings in bigger cities and stuff like that. So there's
used horses and plows instead of tractors.
Yep.
Because they ran out of gas and everything. So yeah, it could happen. I mean, I know I want to go way back, but that's just me. I'm not a big. I know I'm talking to you on this tech, and that's great that we can do this because a lot of information needs to get out. But man, to go to simpler times would just be a dream for me, and just live local. But I know I'm weird. Okay, I understand that.
Well, so and again too, to talk about on the local level, this is something too, as I talk about politically always on the local level, this is something to petition your local county or municipality to have more community gardens and to set them up inside of inner cities. And also, so rooftop gardens and high rises in urban areas, why there's several significant things that those do. They also help they reduce the heat, because what happens is we get into the summer here in the northern hemisphere is in major cities there's all this concrete and asphalt, and the cities get really, really hot. So rooftop gardens actually help reduce that heat, and asphalt and cement help reduce that heat. So that's another a benefit of doing these community gardens, especially in urban areas.
Great idea.
Yeah.
I'd be all over that. Every apartment building that has a flat roof that you could do that on, they should have at least garden containers. And if you have a deck, have a garden container. Put a drip system in it if you can, It's container. That's what I do on my back deck is container gardening. It's just easier for me. And I have watermelons and Crenshaw melons and all this big stuff and cucumbers growing on my front lawn now. So, but I don't have a big giant area for lawns. I know I have a big piece of property, but most of it's full of horses. So, yeah, but still, it's just having that food supply right outside your doors is the most reassuring thought. And if you could just have it down the street, even, walking distance, ride a bike, goes, pick a couple tomatoes or something. It's an amazing thing when you get off of work and you walk by your garden and you pluck a piece of asparagus and eat it, and it tastes so much better than what you buy at the store, especially when you grow it yourself. It's an amazing, amazing thing. I really hope that more people get to experience it, especially the smart people that are on your channel. I want them to do as much as possible to be as comfortable as they can be. And also I know that they want to help and do what they can because they're responsible.
So now, where would I go for resources? Let's say, for such as myself, I don't know much about gardening. I don't have a green thumb, and I want to set up a little garden, on my roof deck or in my apartment or in my home or on my patio or anything like that. Where would I go?
Well, Home Depot is great. I mean, I don't like pushing big box places. So actually, if you have a small family-owned hardware and garden store, but just don't let them push the chemicals on you. Right. That's probably
Well, you start the conversation by saying, I want to set up and I want it to be organic. I don't want to use any harsh chemicals in it. And then they can kind of just tell you. Because like when you say a drip system, specifically, what is a drip system?
A drip system is small tubes that go with like little holes that go right down, so they don't waste a lot of water like sprinkler systems do and stuff like that. It goes right by the root system. So it's super easy. You just turn it on, turn it off, or you can have it set on a timer to go off, when you need it to, but it doesn't evaporate so much into the air, so it doesn't waste a lot of water. It goes right to the plant, and it doesn't go on top of the plant, which can cause, especially if you're in a humid area anyway, it can cause blight and stuff like that. So a really great resource is YouTube. While we still have YouTube, let's utilize it. I mean, there's stuff I've never grown before that I started to grow, and you just look it up, growing this, and you can find so many awesome videos on it. Like, I learned how to grow potatoes in 5-gallon buckets, and they worked out fantastic.
Wow.
5-gallon buckets. I mean, how many 5-gallon buckets can a person in an apartment fit on their deck? And, and they don't take a lot of water either. The potatoes are super easy to grow, amazingly easy. So, I don't know. I mean, YouTube is a fantastic, fantastic resource right now. Just do that and talk to people. And somebody knows somebody who has a plot of land that they're not using,
Right.
And you can get that set up. Say, okay, what can you do? What can you do? What can you do? Get together with your friends. Hey, let's figure out a way to do this. And get your own food, because not only is food going to start to get very, very expensive soon because of what's happening in our bread basket, you never know when the transportation could go down for a week or something, and you won't get food transported, and the grocery stores will be empty within 48 hours. So
yeah, of course. As we look at what's happening in the middle of the country, is there's mass flooding, there's all kinds of severe climate issues that are happening, which could delay. I mean, look. I was on the East Coast, and I was all set to take a train from New York City to Boston to do our final show. And I'm at Penn Station, and all of a sudden an announcement just says that there's a power outage, and all of the trains that were coming into New York City that we were supposed to be able to get on stopped. They were all stopped, and everyone was like scrambling, and I had to get a rental car, and I drove to Boston. And so that kind of stuff, imagine if that happened with our transport. If the highways were closed, like you say, the trucking industry just stopped for whatever reason, or what if there's some sort of strike, or who knows what.
For a while they couldn't get anything, and they had a helicopter drop food to the cows and stuff in the Midwest because the roads were all destroyed, going in and out. So that can happen, especially with all the severe weather and that getting increasingly, every, it's just going to keep happening more and more. You know what I mean? It's just, you can't count on a steady food supply being transported to you. And hopefully we wouldn't have to continue that because of all the fuel it takes to do that.
Yeah, that's another great point, is locally then we shouldn't be trucking and shipping and all of this food all over the country and the world, because it's like the carbon footprint on it is horrifying, when we should just be doing it all locally.
Right. And just for your own security as well and your own food source, I think it's kind of important to keep the smart people going. Yeah, and so the other thing is the pre-cycling, which I was kind of super excited to find here in this state. So surprise.
Tell our viewers what exactly pre-cycling is, and then what specifically you found there in Utah.
Okay, so pre-cycling is when you don't buy things in containers. You have your own containers, or you pretty much rent the containers or you get an extra fee and then you bring them back to fill them or whatever. But you can bring any of your own containers that you already have, bring them in and get bulk items like olive oil and flour and sugar and spices and even shampoos and just about anything you could possibly need you can buy there, but you just buy it in a bulk system. So it works out great. I love the stuff we got there, and all of it's locally sourced at this store. So it's nice that way too.
So basically, and I remember I have talked about this. They have this in New York City, and I didn't get a chance to go there, but there sounds that's great. So they're doing this all over. They're doing this in cities all over the place, and you know, so anybody out there, look to see if there's any pre-cycling stores near you, because you just use it's how we used to get milk, 80 years ago. Is you would have these milk bottles, and they would be delivered to, you wouldn't get a big plastic jug. It was all glass.
And then when you're finished with them, you put them back out, and then the milkmen come pick up empty bottles and put them the full ones in, and then they would wash them out really good and use them again. That's what that store does with the masonry jars that they have there. You can bring in any of your containers, but if you want theirs, you can return them, and they will sanitize and clean them and then bring them, and then you can use them again.
Well, that's a great point too. What that does is if you start looking at the bigger picture, so I'm sure most people would have some type of containers in their home currently that they could.
Oh, we had tons.
Yeah.
I'm scrounging. It's like, oh my gosh, I have this one and this one, this one. Spill these up.
So now you think about, when I'm recycling, the majority of my recycling is just is food containers, and I look at my fridge and I'm like, wow, it's almost all plastic, or at least has a plastic lid or something, a plastic label or whatever. And now this would eliminate so much of that, which is hence the term pre-cycling.
I know. I'm so excited about it, because all that stuff that we're not going to have to throw away that isn't getting recycled because the recycling system here has failed.
Right.
So this is the answer, and I'm looking at all this stuff, like you. It's like, oh my gosh, there's so much packaging. That's just going to be here for a million years. It's not going to go away.
Right. Right.
It's frustrating to me. Now I see things with such different eyes now, as far as everything I use. It's just amazing to find a place like that when you're going through this, and I don't want to create any more problems for the planet. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a part of that. So
yeah, it is. It is like a big light goes off, or a big, just like a relief in the sense, because you go, oh wow, here's this amazing solution. It's not we don't need a think tank for this. We just need to kind of go back to the way things were a little bit in certain examples, and it's not like some huge hassle, right? It's just, and in the long run, what we're doing is helping to save the planet. So it's fantastic. So is there any other little things you want to discuss here before we wrap up?
Just stay informed of what they're doing in your localities, like what they're doing here with, now they want to drill by the Great Salt Lake for oil. By the Great Salt Lake. It's like they're already building a prison on top of the wetlands, expanding the airport on top of the wetlands. And now, they want to do the inland port on top of the wetlands, and there's only 20% wetlands left in the world, and they're just treating it like it's nothing, and just, oh, we can use this for that, So just stay vigilant, and because you're vigilantes, and let's just try to fight this any way we can. So.
Well, that's great. Well, Chris, thank you so much. And for everybody out there, check out her show, The Natural Progressive. It's a Utah-based progressive channel where you talk mainly about the environment and also issues within your community, correct?
But I also, I have people from all over the world who come and join my channel and do interviews on my channel. And Monday Madness is fabulous, 8 p.m. Mountain Time. I get a lot of the people you see in the chat on my show, and you get to meet them. So I was telling them about Pat that came on. Yes. And I've had Osama, number 5, on my show several times now. Just amazing. Sandy from Environmental Coffee House. Yeah, we have a lot of people that just jump on the channel, and Monday Madness, you never know who's going to show up. So it's always fun. Valhalla. I'm sure you've seen these people in the chat, but yeah, get to see them on the screen on my show.
That's so great. So join Chris for her Monday Madness, and of course I do my every Sunday at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern. I do my Super Chat Sundays. I'll be doing one again this week, and I got to meet on the East Coast. Got to meet a bunch of these folks in person, which I love. So
yes, I'm so jealous. Well, I got to meet Lee Camp, so. But Jill Stein, dang.
Yeah, it was awesome meeting Lee Camp and Jill Stein. So, well, Chris, thank you so much for sharing this information with us. It's always very helpful and very useful, and I appreciate it. And everybody out there, get involved in your local community. Start your own local garden. Go to a pre-cycling. Find pre-cycling. If not, suggest it to the stores you already go to that they should start doing that. And every little thing helps, and you are not alone. Thanks for watching.